representing our Muskoka, I gather from my notes. Welcome, Mr. Sif.
Good morning, committee members and staff. Thank you for the time to speak here today. My name is Jason Sift, 3687 Highway 118 West, Port Carling, POB 1J0. I would like to also thank both committee members and staff and the planners at Meridian for all their efforts put into this so far. It's been a huge job, we know. I will say it's been quite the scramble with all the meetings the last week on the site alteration and tree preservation bylaw, that reading through the entire OP draft and preparing for today has been hard with just 5 business days, but I'm sure we can all relate. First off, from my first review, I really do not think this draft is quite ready for the public yet. If you think it is, I urge committee members to ask Meridian to produce some kind of simplified document so the public can try to decipher what this means and how this will affect them and their property rights. I struggle to understand all of the implications of this plan myself. I'm still trying to figure it out. In the last meeting, we kept hearing, let's take this to the public and see what they think. So I hope that it is decided today that an open house and a statutory public meeting is needed and will be held in a way that allows for lots of discussion and conversation. Currently, our planners are going through this document and we will be drafting a summary of sorts. But again, 5 days was not adequate amount of time to do this. I would ask in the future if we could have these documents a little sooner and a little more time to look at them, that would be appreciated. I would like to make a few comments. Water access lots. It was good to see that the need for mainland landings has been massaged and replaced with some other options. However, I think the lease that the town is going to require a marina to sign sounds very complicated, both for the marina and the owner. I would ask, could we maybe have a draft lease or idea of what a marina would need to sign along with the owners? And then we could also check that with marinas to comment on. Undersized lots. In E4.5.2, undersized lots are now being defined as 200 feet or less. This is new, I believe. I don't remember seeing this come up in past drafts or conversations. My understanding was that undersized lots were always classified as 100 feet or less. Steep lots. E4.5.4, another new item that has been added to the draft is blasting on steep lots. There are many steep lots in Muskoka, and blasting can be done in responsible ways. If we remove blasting on steeper lots, the built form of the structure will be much taller and not set down in the land as it could be. Lower level boathouses. This language is an improvement from the past draft and is encouraging to see. We look forward to hearing more on this topic in the future. I want to stress for all councillors, this is something property owners want. They want to enjoy the lake. This is why they come to Muskoka. And if they can sit on their dock or on top of their boathouses, why can't they sit inside their boathouse out of the elements? Recreational carrying capacity. RCC uses a complicated method to limit the number of waterfront lots based on the lake's surface area. It's questionable at best, particularly on lakes where there's public boat access. It might work on smaller lakes where there's only 1 boat per dock, but most cottages on the large lakes have a number of boats. We understand that on the large 3 lakes, they will only maybe be used in special bays. Boating on the large lakes is rarely contained to the bay you park your boat in. We believe RCC policies on Category 1 lakes should be removed from this plan entirely. I can see from today's delegations, this is a sticking point for all. So I would request that Meridian releases some kind of report or study on this topic. Site plan control. I think we can all agree that site plan control is an important important tool that can help to catch issues before they happen, but it should only be used when the proposed development is large enough to need it, not minor square 100-foot additions. Why is it needed for a boathouse? Why is it needed for an addition? The current rules around what triggers site plan are strong enough. At a minimum, all the verbiage should be removed from the OP and drafted into the future bylaws. The proposed official plan is more complex and contains many more interrelated policies and cross-references between different sections of the current official plan. Creating a more detailed and complex plan will pose a greater challenge for property owners and contractors to understand the applicable policies, and more assistance from township planning staff will be required. An increased number of amendments will also be required to the official plan because of the amount of detail and complexity included in the policies. Simple language is not being used. Due to time constraints, I was only able to review section E in regards to the waterfront lots, and will review the balance of the plan in the coming weeks. I would like to make one comment though. We all too often focus on waterfront in Muskoka and not the local population. We need to be drafting more on affordable housing and infrastructure that supports the locals and keeps Muskoka running all year long. We desperately need more homes in Port Carling and Bala. We are all struggling to find staff, and the consensus from most are that they have to live too far away from these towns and the cost of transportation is becoming too high. We need to be putting more real work into this, and this is the time to do it. In conclusion, I will again ask that councillors ask Meridian for a list of changes from the old OP to the new to simplify the review process for everyone. Property owners won't read a 200+ page document, and we need this
Mr.
well in
Sift,
advance
you need
of a
to
public
wrap
hearing.
it up.
Thank you for my time today.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pink, could you, I just think we need to clarify the 200 foot lot compared to the 100 foot. So please go ahead.
Through you. Okay. Currently, the current official plan does identify small lots as those under 200 feet or under 1 acre. Has some directional policies, predominantly that items such as sport courts are not permitted, and that is implemented currently in our zoning bylaw. The 100-foot, 15,000 square foot limitation that was referred to, that is an existing lot of record criteria that is also in our zoning bylaw, and that dictates when building permits or when a property is a building lot or not a building lot. So there is that current distinction in the current official plan and zoning bylaw. Hope that helps clarify.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clark, let's save any thoughts we have to the end of this presentation by our Muskoka, if we could, please. So Mr. Clark. Okay, go for it. Go.
Okay,
go
I'll be brief. Again, thank you to everybody for their hard work on this official plan. I think, you know, obviously tons of passion, tons of input, and everybody has recognized more than a ton of hours. So appreciate everybody who's had input, including all groups. There's some repetition, but I'll be quick. You know, I think it'd be helpful to have a summary of changes, especially if we're going out to the public versus the current OP. So I think we've talked about that. Our Muskoka will be presenting a letter to you regarding our 5 to 6 main topics that we're looking for a change on. We'll have that to you shortly. The OP needs to go through a series of in-person public meetings and not be passed prior to the next election until that happens. If it happens prior and we're able to do that when people are up here in the summer in the next couple of months, then let's go with democracy. But if we're going to try and do this in the fall, I don't think we're going to have enough people around to deal with it that have valuable input. Our Muskoka has significant human resources, and we have planners and lawyers on staff to look at these things. 5 days just is not enough time to respond properly to a document that's 200 and something pages long without a summary of changes. I want, you know, I put down here that I reiterate that there's far too many numbers in this document, but I actually applaud you for removing a lot of numbers in this document and moving them to bylaw discussions where they can be vetted and they can be, you know, justified. So I think that's a great move. Just the caution is if we take a look at how much time the site alteration tree preservation bylaws took, I don't know how many bylaws come out of an official plan, but I'm sure it's more than 2. And it took 3 to 4 meetings to get through those 2 bylaws. So I expect we've got a long journey ahead of us. I would ask that a budget be put together encompassing the cost to the taxpayer over the next 12, 24, 36 months to implement the increase in oversight. It should include human resources, capital expenditures, and all related costs to implementing this OP. I think it's going to be a massive undertaking and require a ton of staff, buildings, and CapEx. I'd also like to know from Mr. Pink, and it's not a today question, it's a today question without a today answer. What is the expected number of annual site plans out of this adoption and the estimated time, or at least the committed time from the township to approve a site plan? You know, there's numbers being bantered around somewhere between 8 and 10 times what we currently have. My last comments are a little more off the cuff. I would just say there were some opening comments from our first speaker about advertising, etc. I'd just say be careful about throwing rocks at glass houses. I think if we start looking at everybody's social media and advertising, there's quite a bit of latitude being provided that maybe should be clamped down on, and we would applaud that as well. So please look at your own information. The only other thing that I'll say is on RCC, I was involved in an in-depth discussion with that being part of the planning committee. It probably does apply to small lakes. It requires some tweaking. It isn't science-based. There's variables that need to be put into that formula, such as boat speed, that we're guessing at. I don't think anybody on a small lake knows the average speed for what period of time a boat is running around the lake. It was deemed not to work on large lakes. So organizations have said, well, let's chop large lakes into small bays and into small areas. That is not the intent of why recreational carrying capacity was put together. So I applaud Mr. Siff's idea of why don't we actually get Meridian, although they may be conflicted with Mr. Diamond, who created recreational carrying capacity, about responding to it or putting a plan together. But again, we got to use the data, and that data needs to be vetted. So as a tool, I think it works. We're talking about lake plans, causation studies, and lake frontage and site plans all being part of creating a lot on a small lake, and then adding RCC. That's 5 things to control the creation of a lot on a small lake. I'd say that's a lot of oversight, and it would be impossible to create a lot on a small lake. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. And I don't believe Mr. Diamond created RCC. He's done a lot of work in that area, but I think we should give the credit to whoever actually created it. And I can't remember who it is. Anyway, thank you. And I have Kevin Scott next. Mr. Scott. We don't see Mr. Scott here. All right, well then let's go to Ms. Brown. Welcome, Ms. Brown.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you just fine, so please go ahead.
Wonderful. I don't want to be repetitive, and I echo Jason and Bob's points, but I'll just read a few paragraphs that I have drafted. Due to timing constraints and so many other items on this previous week's agenda, it has been hard to undertake a satisfactory and detailed review of the draft plan and additional information and material provided. A 30-page memorandum and a 257-page proposed draft 3 official plan is a substantial amount of information to process and decipher. Our comments from our March 21st, 2022 letter still stand in regards to the draft official plan. To allow sufficient time to revise the proposed changes, we request a concise document that clearly outlines the changes that have been made within draft 3 official plan be provided well in advance of the statutory open house and public meeting of the in advance of the dates. Having the memorandum alongside the draft 3 official plan has led to confusion, a lot more questioning on our end. As mentioned in the staff report, we agree that committee should concur that a statutory open house and public meeting be scheduled, and we urge you to host these in person as restrictions province-wide have opened up. We believe these in-person meetings are needed to allow for discernment within the draft 3 official plan so that the best plan for the businesses and residents alike can be made. With some tweaking to the recommendations, we think a balanced and fair solution can be achieved. We know that all parties who have spoken and continue to add input to this process have a passion for Muskoka. Our common love of Muskoka should unite us. The official plan should be a guideline for the bylaws and be clear and concise. The proposed official plans includes many new concepts and imposes many new restrictions that are not directed by the district plan or provincial policy. For example, new lot creation restricted by causation studies, increased area and frontage requirements, developed area limits, etc. The proposed draft 3 official plan is substantially similar to the draft 2 official plan. It is unclear how the existing plan that was seen to be pretty good has evolved to the current draft that is more complex, complicated, and restrictive in some areas. As asked in our last letter, have private planning consultants who work in the township been contacted for help and input? The township should be using groups and resources within the community. The cumulative impact of these draft official plan changes will greatly affect the development rights on all properties. We urge you to consider making the official plan as simple as possible, which we have seen in some areas. Leave all the numbers and details to be worked out within the bylaws, as you have done for recreational floor area in section E4:10. Let's make the document and process user-friendly so property owners and contractors can reference it with ease. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.